SCP-6284 is called the Zueljin. You guys, it's scary to have anything operate on me. I've had a few procedures before and it's always very nerve-wracking. I can only imagine something scary like that was in the thumbnail of this video reacting to trying to operate on me. It's a horrible thought. Anyway, we're going to react to it today, guys. This one's by Dr. Cat. Make sure to subscribe to him. Subscribe to me if you like reaction videos, and let's get into this one.
I'm not sure about this, the man said as we prepped him for surgery. We transported the terminally ill subject from one of the Foundation's facilities, but his condition was beyond even our own ability to heal. If everything you told us is true, there's no reason to worry. Okay. These surgeons are more capable than anyone else on Earth. You have a second chance at life here, Mr. Johnson, I said, reassuringly. Truth be told, I couldn't know for certain if the man would survive, but he was just one of 74 subjects sent to the surgeons at Volkheim Hospital. The place was a rundown World War II era structure situated in the most eastern parts of Germany, in a town leveled by American B-17 bombers in the end stages of the war. All that remained was a few ruined long since sealed off by the SCP Foundation, restricting access to only the most essential of personnel. The subjects chosen were specifically brought to Germany for this experiment. Moral judgment. I swear, I answered everything truthfully as God is my witness. He was terrified of death. I'd seen that much. If the man truly held religious views, he'd surely end up in hell for his crimes. But as an atheist, I figured the Foundation would be the next best thing. We knew everything about the man's past. We knew about his murders, his robberies, and his scams. He was remarkably good at them, always running from the law, jumping from identity to identity.
So he's pretty much a
D-class. But disease was the one earthly thing the man could never overcome. He'd been afflicted with a rare liver disease, one that would take his life in less than 3 years. A transplant would have been possible, but with his unique genetic background, a match was damn near impossible. Then I estimate about a 90% chance of success. You're going to be treated just the way a man of your stature deserves. Mr. Johnson was a rich man, and his new, fake identity reflected that. He was the perfect subject, and if our suspicions were true, we'd have a cure for pretty much any disease. Are you ready?
Interesting.
I asked, trying to hide my distaste for the man. Truth be told, it was an honor for me to enter the Volkheim Hospital. As a Class D crewman, I had no business setting foot inside the restricted grounds of the hospital.
So you were Class D?
But after loyal service to the Foundation and recruitment of the 74 awaiting subjects, I was allowed to guide them through the halls towards the OR, where the surgeons awaited.
This
You understand the terms of the treatment?
The point of a
I asked. He nodded. I need you to say it. I understand, he said nervously. Good. With that, 2 of the guards put a bag over his head and carried him into the windowless transportation vehicle. The location was strictly confidential, and though we could have sedated the man, it went against the terms of the treatment. We drove for 5 hours, going off-road and into the forest. It was a difficult trek few vehicles could handle, but it aided in keeping the location information secure. Once we arrived, it was as if we'd traveled back in time. There was an ancient military camp situated among the ruins of the village, with abandoned vehicles and weapons. I exited the front of the vehicle while the guards got Mr. Johnson out. He stumbled onto the ground, severely disoriented by the journey. Where are we? Johnson asked as I pulled the bag from his head. His face went from nervous to panicked as he observed his surroundings. The ancient look of the place didn't exactly reassure our subjects, but he had been warned. This doesn't look right, he said. There's no going back now, I said. He looked to each of the guards, both of them heavily armed and ready to fire should he attempt an escape. We led him through the village towards the hospital. It was the most modern building there, constructed in 1939, meant for battlefield casualties. There were no people in the village, none living at least, nor was the hospital staffed. The only place still holding signs of twisted life was the surgical wing. Let's talk about the questions you answered, I said as we walked him in through the main entrance. The walls were full of mold, and the concrete was starting to fall apart. By all means, it looked abandoned, which was only a partial truth. The questions? He asked, getting more nervous with every step. You claim to have answered everything truthfully.
Dead people?
Is that
Undead?
correct?
Undead, maybe?
Yes, of course. The questions themselves weren't anything you'd normally see on a hospital forum. They were all moral questions ranging from basic inquiries about theft to admissions of murder.
Gotcha.
Basic on his paper, he was a perfect man who donated generously to various charities. Obviously, that was part of his fake identity,
Right.
something the Foundation knew. The question was whether or not SCP-6284 would know.
What
We
the
took
heck,
Johnson
dude?
down to the basement of the hospital, a place meant to protect against bombs dropped during surgery.
Right.
It was a dark place with stale air and moist floor. A long cable stretched through the hall, miraculously lighting up bulbs from the last millennia, despite having no obvious source of electricity. A few
Weird.
gurneys stood on the side, and for the first time since entering the hospital, we saw signs of life.
Oh,
There were a few nurses standing motionlessly on the side of the
with
hallway,
gas masks.
wearing old-fashioned gowns and white, unmarked hats. On their left arms, they all had armbands with a plus symbol,
Yeah.
and they all wore gas masks, obscuring their faces.
Sure.
I don't understand.
This is
This
creepy,
can't be the
man.
place,
This is
Johnson
creepy as
said.
hell.
I can assure you that it is. This is the only place in the world where the worthy can be saved. The worthy? What the hell are you talking about? He asked. Those who deserve to be saved will make a full recovery. But based on your answers, you are definitely one of them. Isn't that right, Mr. Johnson?
Whoa,
I asked back.
I see.
He didn't respond. He just followed us diligently, too afraid to put up a fight against the guards walking behind him. We
Too late,
walked
buddy.
past several rooms only separated by
Look at that
curtains.
face of
On
worry.
the floor before them lay puddles of dried out blood.
Uh,
It didn't help ease Johnson into a sense of security.
no.
Who are these people? Why are they all wearing gas masks? They're here to judge us, I said matter-of-factly. But only you are going to be judged by
Oh,
SCP-6284. What is that? He asked. We call him the Surgeon, I said. As we reached the end of the hall, we'd passed about a dozen nurses,
Right.
all who had turned to stare silently at us. They were all marked as SCP-6284-1.
Okay.
There was a chair next to the last room with an armrest. Sit, I
like a
ordered.
desk.
No, I'm not doing this, he said. Either you sit in that chair, or you die from liver failure in a year. This, at least, gives you a chance at life.
Huh.
He stared at me for a moment. His eyes were tinted with a weak yellow, meaning
Yeah.
signs of liver failure had already appeared.
Wow.
He might even have been just months away from death,
Jaundice.
closer than expected. He knew he wasn't going to make it without our help. He could feel the disease within him, killing
Dang,
him.
man.
Whether God had inflicted him with a
That's
disease,
horrible.
or if nature just played him a random card, he'd find out soon enough.
Mhm.
One of the nurses approached with a syringe in hand. What's that? Johnson asked nervously. Something to make you relax for the surgery. Can't have you all tensed up.
Right.
I didn't lie. It was a muscle relaxant, one not known to any doctor on the planet.
Okay.
Nor had we been able to fully analyze the substance, but it worked. Problem was that it did nothing for the pain. It only paralyzed the subject to prep them for surgery.
No,
Johnson
dude.
diligently handed the nurse his arm, and she injected the substance without speaking a word,
Wow.
only breathing heavily through the gas mask. Once they were done,
So
they
he's gonna
quickly
be
escorted
paralyzed,
him
but he's gonna
inside
feel
and put
the
him on
surgery.
the bed just in time
That's
for the
so
medicine to work.
horrible.
He collapsed on the bed, unable to move anything but his eyes. In the corner of the operating room
And
stood a
that's the
surgeon facing the wall, SCP-6284. Once the nurses left the room, the surgeon turned to us. Unlike the nurses,
Faceless.
he wasn't wearing a gas mask, nor did he have a face. His head was just covered in smooth skin, with a few
Weird.
strands of hair randomly attached to
Oh
his
my
skull.
God,
Johnson
dude.
looked panicked, but with his muscles paralyzed, he wasn't able
Couldn't
to
do
talk.
that.
The surgeon approached him and just stared at his subject, judging every act
I mean,
he'd ever committed.
stared at him with what?
We
His
stood
eyes?
by,
He didn't have eyes.
waiting for a judgment. Once the judgment had passed, he let out a low-pitched screech, alerting the assisting nurse to enter the room with a tray of old tools. All the while, I just wondered what the surgeon had found out. He grabbed a scalpel and bent over to start his first incision. The moment of truth was upon us. But before he started, I looked Johnson straight in the eyes. "I know who you are, Mr. Henderson," I said.
Oh my
His eyes
gosh.
lit up in fear as he heard his real name, but he couldn't respond. "I wish you had answered truthfully.
Ooh.
Then we wouldn't have had to do this,"
Oh
I
my
whispered
God.
into his ear. With that, the surgeon started his first incision,
What a
a
hard story.
Y-shaped cut, typically not for surgery, but for autopsies. He
Oh.
cut deeper and deeper, exposing the fat, muscles, and finally organs. All the while, Johnson tried to scream in pain,
Couldn't
but no
do it.
sound came out. Once the surgeon had reached
This
his
is so
lungs,
horrible.
Johnson lost his ability to breathe.
Oh, I
He
guess
must have
so.
been in excruciating pain. but lucky for him, he wouldn't have to suffer for long.
Yeah,
Even
he
after
was
he
in
died,
shock.
the surgeon kept cutting out his organs, tossing them in a waste bin on the side. He wasn't
Wow.
worthy, as we'd already known from the start, but the sight still disgusted me. Then I turned to the guards. Subject D-628473 wasn't worthy. We still have a dozen left. Let's go and prepare the next one. And let's hope they've led a better life. Item number, SCP-6284. Object class,
Yo.
Euclid. Special containment procedures.
I love
Due to the
Dr.
dormant
Kat's
state
videos,
of
man.
SCP-6284
Such a
unless
good tale.
approached, containment protocol dictates that it be kept hidden rather than enclosed.
Sure.
Guards are to be stationed around the perimeter of the hospital located in East Bavaria, Germany, and can be found in the surgical wing in the basement. Any trespassers are to be shot with tranquilizers to subsequently be brought in for questioning. Description: SCP-6284 is a World War II-era German combat surgeon wearing a typical white gown and hat. Though looking entirely human, he does not have a face. His sex has been determined mostly based on bone structure and size. No attempt has been made at subduing SCP-6284 for further examination.
Sure, you're not gonna check him?
SCP-6284-1 refers to a dozen nurses assisting the sole surgeon, all of them wearing classical white gowns, hats, and armbands with a plus sign to identify them as medical personnel.
Can you imagine?
They all wear
this place?
GM-24 gas masks and do not interfere with the surgery, apart from handing the surgeon tools. Upon assessment, the surgeon chooses whether to save or to kill the subjects.
Right.
What criteria are used remain unknown, but we hypothesize that it includes moral standing. At the
Sure.
current date, 05/02/21, 73 subjects have entered the operating room, of which 17 subjects were cured from various ailments, and
Okay.
54 have perished.
Huh. Wow. I gotta say, y'all, the Tale style SCP animations I love so much. It makes for a great story, especially this. I was just thinking about, you know, when I ever went for any kind of procedures or whatever, I was so nervous, right? But there's things that give you confidence about the procedure. You get to know the doctor, the nursing staff might be good, their bedside manners, their reputations, you know, how popular the hospital is in your area. All of these things play a part in putting you at ease and knowing that you're going to be on the good drugs to where you're not going to feel it or know what happened or whatever, you know? This, on the other hand, though, holy cow. Dr. Cat, ladies and gentlemen, make sure to subscribe to him. Subscribe to me if you like reaction videos. Thanks so much for watching. As always, this is Zueljin signing off. We'll see you next time.